Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So we have the Champions Chess Tour finals going on, and we have kind of like a final four left. We got Alireza Firouzja, we got Jan Nepomniachtchi, we got Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and Magnus Carlsen. So I went ahead and brought you the first game between Magnus Carlsen and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. You know, classic matchup, very strong players. So all my people in the Philippines, as always, I will say Maraming Salamat. Anybody who is coming from Norway, I will say Tusen Tak. Anybody who is coming from France, I will say Merci beaucoup. Welcome from anywhere from around the world. But if you guys are ready to go, man, let's take a look and see what we got for this game. All right, man, so we got the move C4. A little bit rarer than E4, D4, but still very common move. We do see the move G6. And the thing I wanted to say that's interesting about this is it's showing me that it's called, it's the English opening, it's the Great Snake Variation. Don't ask me why they call it that. I just thought it was kind of cool that they called it Great Snake Variation. It's pretty interesting naming. We do see the move G3. We do see the move C5. We got Bishop G2. We got Bishop G7. We got Knight C3 and then Knight to F6. And we still have the English opening, and it is the Anglo-Indian defense. So you guys know, I mean, for those of you that do play D4, I mean, you got D4, Knight F6 to get you into an Indian. You know, you got some King's Indian type situations possibly coming up. Stuff like that. We do see Knight to H3. In true Magnus fashion, he's like, bro, you know what? I don't want to play any of that mainline stuff. Let's play some super sidelines. So already as of move number 5, we only have 16 total games in the database right now. We do see the knight going to C6. We got knight to F4. We got the move D6. And then we do see the move B3. And the crazy thing about this one is we are 7 moves into the game. And after the move B3, we only have 1 game, and it's from 1986. I mean, that's a pretty good year if I say so myself. It was my birth year. So, you know, some special things happened that year, as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, we do see castles by black. We got castles by white. The rook goes over to B8. So we kind of have like some Sicilian type ideas, some Banco type stuff, because we are going to be pushing A6 and B5. You know, your pawn structure is pointing in this direction like so. So this is definitely where you want to try to get some counterplay. We got Bishop B2. We got the move A6, like I was saying. We do see the move D3. Bishop goes to D7. We got Queen to D2, and then we now have B5. And you can trade here if you want to, but you're going to be taking back with the A pawn, and then you do have B4 that can possibly come. So it kind of just depends on how you want to play. So we see Magnus Carlsen taking full advantage of this beautiful hole somewhat that black has in their position after going on that queenside attack. So we do see knight C going to D5 here. And queen went to D2 earlier, so I mean, we are definitely making sure that we, you know, take care of this bishop over here. So, I mean, white kind of has a nice little hold in the center, man. It's a nice positional position if you are white. So we do see the move E6. Maxime is like, bro, I want to force your hand. So Magnus says, don't mind if I do. Knight takes F6 with check. Bishop takes. We got bishop taking, queen taking, and then we just see the move E3. And this is a little subtle move. It might kind of seem like, well, what is E3 doing? Well, one of the things you want to be paying attention to in your opponent's position is when they have like a piece that, I mean, it could be positioned okay, but it wants to get a little bit better. And that piece is the knight. You know, if you can get this knight somewhere, the bishop might be able to come to C6, improve itself just a little bit. So knight to D4 is definitely a move that you would be considering. Since the knight is not on F3, it makes, you know, D4 a little bit of a hole. So Magnus just says, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and defend against that idea. You can go knight E5 if you want to, but it's not as good as D4. So we do see rook F going to D8. We got rook A to C1. Pawn takes C4. We do see pawn taking C4. And then we do have the move knight to E5. And Magnus actually goes rook F to D1. But I think some of you guys might be sitting there thinking like, wait a minute, bro. Back up, son. Why can't I take this pawn? I mean, you know, black doesn't really have any good discoveries with this bishop, right? Well, you actually give black just a little bit too good of an initiative, and Magnus Carlsen definitely felt it in this position. So let's kind of like take a look at that. If we got queen taking D6, you would be getting a pawn, and then after bishop to C6, you would be grabbing a second pawn. but you have a lot of fire in your position if you are white. You would be looking at bishop taking g2, and then after the king takes g2, you would be looking at g5. And one of the problems that you have in this position is the knight here is kind of weirdly placed. It doesn't have like a lot of great squares that it can go to. You're going to be running into some trouble, and g5 is knocking the knight away. You are wanting to place a check here on the f3 square, stuff like that. So, you know, even though you have gotten a little bit of material, you definitely, black is definitely the one that's attacking white here. Like I said, we did not see that. We saw rook f to d1, just trying to prepare things a little bit more. We do see bishop going to c6 now. We got bishop taking c6, knight taking c6. We got knight down to d3. We got the move a5. We do see h4, you know, putting the knight back on this square. You know, you really kind of don't want any g5 stuff to occur, maybe in the future. So that is why h4 is being played. We do see the move a4. Rook slides over to b1. We got pawn taking b3, pawn taking b3. And you see that black definitely has a really good position right here. They have managed to strap up white with a backward pawn that it's really kind of hard for you to push that. We do see rook sliding over to a8. We got the king going to g2. We got h5. We got queen sliding over to e2. Rook d goes to b8. And then we do see knight back to f4. And like I said, one of the reasons that you kind of have black in a good position, they have a good amount of space. They are kind of trying to target this backward pawn that white has in their position. And the knight is kind of weirdly placed, like I said before. This isn't a really supernatural square for this knight. You really don't kind of have anything that you can hit in black's position at the moment. So, I mean, definitely one of the pieces that you would like to kind of get in a better position is going to be this knight. We do see rook sliding over to d8. We got rook to d2. We got king sliding over to f8. We got rook b to d1. We got king to e7. And black is just in time to make sure that they take care of this weakness that they have right here. We got queen going to f3. And then we do see the move rook to a6. And one of the things I want to say about this, man, is Maxime is actually playing, you know, pretty much the best moves for quite a while. So, I mean, yes, Magnus is Magnus, but I mean, Maxime is definitely, you know, showing his strength as well to make sure that he holds the position that he's in. And he is definitely a little bit for choice right here. Magnus Carlsen comes up with a really kind of cute move, and anybody who really kind of understands tactics, they should look at this move and understand why you cannot accept this sacrifice. We see Magnus going rook to d5. And like I said, it looks kind of weird because you're like, wait a minute, why am I putting it on a square where a pawn can take, right? Well, this is a poisoned rook. If black went ahead and said, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and get me a rook, bro, you would be looking at knight taking d5, and this is checking the king and the queen, and you are losing way too much material for a rook. So that is why we do not see Maxime do that right there. After we see rook to d5, we actually see rook to d7. We got the queen going to e4. So, I mean, Magnus is kind of trying to trap Maxime a little bit. He's trying to make him, you know, make a little bit of an inaccuracy here. You know, we do have this pawn currently pinned. So if this rook can actually move somewhere, we would be looking at knight to d5 with check. So you do kind of have to be careful if you are Maxime. We see the move knight to e5. And so it kind of seems like it plugs everything. It kind of covers everything. But we actually have reached a point in the game that Magnus finds a really nice combination. And it starts with a specific move. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to guess the move that he finds in this position, go ahead and do so. Okay, so like I said, one of the major problems that you had in the position is that, like, you know, this pawn is pinned right here to the king, and you don't really want to take here. You can, you know, you're going to be looking at knight taking here. But you actually, knight to e5 does not plug the position correctly for you. And it actually, like I said, it does allow Magnus to take advantage of a specific, you know, sequence of moves that Maxime played. Which he didn't blunder, but I mean, it's definitely a little bit better for white. We do see rook taking c5. We got pawn taking c5, rook taking d7, king taking d7. And this takes advantage of the fact that the rook is on a6. We got queen to b7 with check, king slides back to e8. And then we have just one, you know, a rook, and we have a pawn to the good if you are white. So backing up in the position that we had before, After we saw knight to e5, there wasn't really anything too horrible about this move. But once you see rook taking c5, you absolutely do not want to take this rook because you see the sequence that you went ahead and saw. After we saw pawn taking here and pawn taking here, some of you might be wondering, hey man, wait a minute. Couldn't I just take with the knight? Well, that brings us back to the original problem that we had. And now we have knight to d5 with check. And this is forking the king and the queen because this pawn is currently pinned to the king. So we'll feed back all the way up. After we saw Magnus play this rook to d5 idea, it was literally possible for Maxime to say, hey, man, I see what you're trying to do. I'm just going to disregard it. And I'm going to go ahead and just go on the attack, the offensive. You did, like I said, give white a weak pawn here on b3. So why not attack it? Rook to b6 is the absolute best move in this position. And it is just simply attacking this pawn that you created that was backwards. Also, being able to kind of see all the way into the future and recognize what white has the ability to do. Rook does subtly move over and it does now cover this square and it moves it off of that forkable square after all that combination that you guys just got done seeing. So the computer is literally all-knowing. It is recognizing that you have the potential to do that, all of that combination, and it just wanted to slide the rook off of that square and protect this square also. So this is some deep stuff by Stockfish, homie. But like I said, we did not see that. We did get into this position here. And so, I mean, it's definitely much better for white, but it's not like the game is completely over, so we still play on. We got queen going to f5. The queen goes up to c8 with check. We got the king to e7. We do see queen taking c5, and now Magnus is up 2 entire pawns. So, I mean, automatically, this is not where you want to be. I mean, if you are Maxime against Magnus Carlsen. Not quite. So we do see king going to e8, and then we see queen going down to d4. We got knight down to g4. And this is kind of a crunch time situation for white because you absolutely do not want to allow this e5 forking these two pieces. So you do have to react specifically here. So we do see the move e4, and this is knocking black's queen away. We got queen going over to a5. We see knight down to h3. We're trying to redirect to g5 to hit f7. f7 is forever weak. It does need to be defended, usually, even into the endgame like we see here. We got queen going to b4, knight going up to g5. We got the queen going down to e1. And yes, you are in a very dominant position and you are attacking if you are Magnus, but you have to make sure that you are still kind of keeping some contact here because if you allow this pawn to drop with check, you would be looking at mate coming up on this square here. So you definitely have to make sure that you are covering your stuff. So we do see the move c5. Queen currently holds f2. We do see the move e5 trying to deflect the queen away. We got queen to a4 with check first. The king goes to f8, and then we do see the queen settling down to a2. Like I said, never forgetting to defend your position. Many games have been lost when you are just completely winning the game, and you're like, hey, man, I don't have to worry about my own self, and then you get checkmated, and you're like, no! Yes, I know it sucks. It happens to me all the time. We do see the move f6. We got queen to a8 with check. The king goes to e7. We got queen going down to b7 with check. We got king sliding up to d8. And then we see Magnus find a really nice... everything is mating here. I mean, if you are black. So we got knight to e6 check. The king slides over to e8. We got queen to c8 with check. The king goes down to e7. And then we actually see queen to d8 with check. And it is in this position that Maxime resigns the game. I think some of you guys might be looking like, wait a minute. Queen to d8 check, that just drops the knight, right? Well, the thing is, if you drop the knight, which is what we see, we would see here, you would be looking at queen to e8, and this is checkmate. Now, some of you guys might be thinking in this position, I mean, you don't have to take the knight, right? You can like move away somewhere. Well, the only place you can move is over here. And there is still a way to force the situation that we saw a minute ago. After king to f7, you would be looking at queen to f8. And there is always possibilities where Magnus can give up the knight and get that checkmate situation. After the king would take here, only move, queen e8 would check. It's the same thing, just postponed one tempo. So that is that game. So hopefully what you got from this game is even though you are like plus 12, you got to make sure that you protect against the mate, which is what we saw Magnus Carlsen making sure he was doing, and then finding your opportunities when they present themselves. So the Magnus effect is real. you know, you kind of see ghost, I think, when you're playing like Magnus, because you're thinking there's always something up his sleeve somewhere. So even though we had a position that was like pretty much dead even, all Maxime had to do was just go rook to b6 and just basically say, I don't care about your attack. We did not see that. So all of my people that are in the Philippines, maraming salamat aking makaibigan. Posa na nunooding aking my video. Anybody who is coming from Norway, I will say God Morgan and Tusen Tak for stopping by and taking a look at my video. Anybody who is coming from France, I will say merci beaucoup, mes amis. Let me see, it's breakfast time, so bon petit déjeuner if you're gonna grab you something to eat, and I'm gonna see you guys next time.